Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Gavinsky's Tutorials. Today I'm looking at Magic Delay by GS DSP. This is their first release on iOS, but they've got a few apps out on desktop. Extremely innovative developers, so I'm very glad to see them starting to port their stuff over to iOS. I'm also really glad that they've given me 3 copies of the iOS version of Magic Delay to give away to subscribers to my channel. Thank you very much, Gustav, and welcome to the iOS platform. All the details of how to win are in the pinned comment at the top of the YouTube comment section. Good luck, everybody, and Merry Christmas as well, by the way. If you celebrate that, I'm making this video on Christmas Eve. Now, in today's video, it's going to be pretty thorough. First, I'm going to let you listen to some audio examples of this. We're going to start with beats, where it can really do some extremely cool stuff, and then move on to more harmonic content. And then I will go through the interface and explain everything. They do have documentation on their website, but if you watch this video, you're going to get everything that's available there without having to go to the website and read about it. I'll also mention a couple of little bugs that some users are currently experiencing, but which the devs are aware of and which hopefully will be fixed soon. This app is half price at the moment, so you might want to pick it up sooner rather than later if you like it. To me, it is by far the most innovative delay app of 2022, and it's definitely going to be making my best apps of the year video when I finally make that. So again, if you're not subscribed, I would recommend subscribing because that video will likely have an absolute ton of apps to give away. Anyway, before I let you hear it, I just want to explain very, very briefly what this is. So, this is a spectral delay. And so what that means is that you can apply specific delay times to specific frequencies. And you can do that in various different ways. You have various curves that you can draw, and then you can use the XY pad to morph between those curves. And we have some other controls here that we can use to invert, shift, skew the waveforms or the curves that we draw rather, and a feedback section with 2 different types of feedback, quite interesting. Actually, there's a lot of really nice small attention to detail in this app that you'll see as we go through the video. I really like this dev's approach. It's very intelligent. Now, one of the really coolest things, or 2 cool things, first of all, it's got undo and redo, which a lot of apps don't have, and that seems to work on pretty much everything, which again, not a lot of apps do. It's got 3 different levels of randomization, from weaker to stronger randomization. It also gives you control over what exactly you randomize, which is brilliant. So many apps don't do that. And it has an absolutely incredible modulation system built in that allows a lot more modulation sources than just the usual LFOs. So it's really, really impressive, actually, I think. So first, we're going to start with beats. Now, what I got here is 2 instances of loop mix. In this one, I've muted that synth line. So the synth line is being played over here, and I'm not applying the delay to that. I'm just applying it to the beats. Now, although I'm using the internal AUM preset menu, the app's own preset system is good. It's just my habit to use AUM's preset system. All right. So I'm sure you'd agree with me. You can just take, because in LoopMix, this great app, by the way, I mean, you can do a lot to chop on the fly your loops to get constant variation. But here I was not doing that. Hang on, I need to take a little drink of something. I'm super dehydrated, recovering from COVID at the moment. Excuse me. So, yeah, LoopMix can already do a lot to make loops evolve over time and so on. But here I was just playing that static loop, and you could see that just adding magic delay brought in so much variety. So, you know, this can really, really do a lot to bring variety to loops. Now let's listen to it on some synth type stuff, some harmonic content. Excuse me. So here I have iVox, the Polyvox inspired synth by Red Rock Sound. And unfortunately, let me explain something. At the moment, there is a bug, at least on some devices, with magic delay, where at least in AUM, I cannot have more than one instance open, otherwise I get an error message and they both crash. There's another bug for me, where if I press sample and hold, the app immediately crashes. The developers are aware of these and are working on them. So that is pretty annoying, to be honest, and I hope it gets fixed soon. So just using Zoa here. And I've kept Zoa very simple, just eighth and quarter notes, because I just want simple input, basically, so you can hear what the delay app itself is bringing to the table. Okay, here we go. Love this. Let's tweak. So apart from their own presets, which I think are these Explore ones, they got various sound designers like Christian Vogel and DataBroth to make presets for them. They're really cool. So these ones here that say tweak are just, you know, for example, this is the shift and sweep preset from the main bank that I just tweaked a little bit. And again, nothing wrong with the internal preset system. I just like to use the AUM one. So over here we've got the California Myotis. Don't know if that's the right pronunciation. No idea what it looks like. Probably some sort of bat type thing by the sound of it. Again, I can currently only use one instance, but I'm so sure, well, at least I hope, that that gets fixed very soon. So again, we can get all kinds of crazy stuff here. Have a listen. That's like a super interesting reverb almost. And we can change how these sound by playing with the algorithms. We've got one that's more percussive, one that's more tonal, and one that's kind of a bit of a mix. You can hear this one seems to preserve a lot more of the attack. And you can hear here a lot more tonal stuff going on. The middle one is often my preferred choice. Again, depends what you're putting in. So don't think of this as just a delay. It's really a deep sound design tool capable of a lot of different types of sound. Okay, so let's walk through the app's features. And I'm going to try and do this as quickly as I can, otherwise this video is going to get a little bit too long. Now, okay, first thing over here, we can change the skin bright, dark, default, etc., etc. Yeah, you can import and export presets. That's great. Again, it's something that every bloody synth should have, but doesn't. Look, you can also choose the language for your tooltips. They've even got Irish here. Brilliant. Arabic, etc. Here you can enable or disable tooltips. And this is, I think, just the date that it was released for desktop. So here is where you can turn on the tooltips, and you can see then basically when you press on different things, it will give you information about that. So that's really, really useful. The only thing I would say is that when we come down to the modulation sources, which we'll talk about a little bit more later, the tooltips do not explain some of these that are not really that obvious. Like, okay, spectral brightness, I can kind of guess what that is. Spectral centroid, spectral flatness, spectral flux. These are really things that could be explained. Zero crossing, no idea. And I don't remember seeing these explained on the website either. So that's something that could be added to the documentation. But anyway, it's a minor thing. It's great to have these tooltips, and they will bring you a very long way without having to look at the documentation. Here, I haven't even used this. I don't generally use these, but a sort of A and B thing. I imagine the way it works is, okay, you've got something set up here. You copy it over to B, play around with B, and then compare them. Okay, fine. Here we've got our preset menu. Looks, I haven't experimented yet, but it looks like you can set up folders for your user presets. So that's good as well. We got forward and backwards buttons for scrolling through presets, which again, not all synths have. And it really pisses me off when they don't, because it's just such a useful thing, especially when you're making a demo video. There's just nothing more annoying than having to dive in here every time. You can generate names, random names for presets, and then either save that name or generate a new one, or get rid of it. And then you have undo and redo buttons, which apply to most things. Like, let me see, for example, if I save this name, no, it's not letting me undo that. But anyway, they do seem to let you undo and redo most things. So that's great. Now we've also got 3 different randomization algorithms. One that is kind of more minimal, one that is a sort of normal level, one that is a bit more extreme. And here we can choose exactly what gets randomized. So all these things that are highlighted at the moment, if you press any of those random buttons, all those things will get randomized. So like, for example, the Y and X values on the XY pad, the dry, wet, and so on and so on. But you can see that some things are not selected there. Like, for example, look at that skew button and this little thing. So if we want to bring in those into randomization, then we can. And so then we press here and it'll come up with stuff. So let's just have a quick little listen and see how the randomization sounds. And I'll just take these off because so I'm not 100% sure, but it seems to me that Yeah, the randomization is still in a way connected slightly to the sound of the preset that you're randomizing, even with the extreme setting. Okay, so that's randomization. And then here we can just turn the effect on or off. A very useful feature that, again, not every FX app has, and I really don't know why. I mean, of course, in AUM, it's easy enough to just bypass the effect, but still, I think it's always very useful to have that in the app itself. A lot of nice attention to detail by these guys. I really appreciate it. Okay, now here, first of all, we have solo buttons for each different curve. If we press here, basically this will paste this kind of light greenish, sort of whitish curve in here. This will paste in this bluish purplish one, and this will paste in the green one. Here we can reset. Here we can invert the curve. And here we can randomize the curve. Okay, so that's what this does. So let's just look again at a couple of basic little things. So, okay, one thing here, first thing I'll look at here is that we can choose what type of delay note values we will get when we drag on the y-axis here. So, for example, if I just keep this one on, then here we'll only have regular values, no dotted or triplets. And you can see also that we've, got this kind of grid thing here. And you can see that basically lower delay speeds or delay times are at the top. Okay, so quarter, eighth, 16th, 32nd, 64th. And then we bring it down here, then it's completely dry. It's not applying any delay. Now, if we turn that off and turn this one on, then now we're only getting triplet values. Same if we turn this one on, we'll only get dotted values. And then if we have all three or whatever, any combination of those on, then we can get access to all of those values. So that's another really, really nice implementation, I think, there. Okay, now here we have this invert thing. So let's just have a listen. Zoa is a brilliant app. It can do some really interesting things, but like I say, I need to use it very simply here for the sake of demonstration purposes, but it's capable of really, really beautiful complex sequences. Now here, this basically creates a stereo spread for the inversion. Shift will just move the curve along in either direction. And again, we can have that stereoized. Skew will basically crunch everything over towards the left side or the right side. And this will reset. Now notice that if you don't have any curve, let me turn this off. Notice that if you don't have any curve selected and you start pressing here, it's not going to be able to do anything. And that's why these start flashing to remind you, hey, select one of these curves. What is it you want to work on? Now, another button here, this one. So look here. Right, so here this will basically allow us to do diagonal lines and stuff like that. If we choose here, it's always going to be stepped and it's always going to go along these lines here. So let me first just reset that line and let's turn on the free mode here. And now if we look, we can see what complex delays it's capable of doing, because basically this is going to apply all of these different delay speeds at different points in the frequency range. So for example, here around the E4 value, it's going to be regular 64ths, and then when we get up here, it's going to be dotted 64ths, etc., etc. So let's just solo this one, and let me play in Zoa, and let me bring up the range. Do you hear now the way there's a lot faster delays on those higher notes? And now we've inverted that. Now you can see that a lot of it is dry. Now, do you see how selecting works? If I don't select, if I just drag this dot, then that's all that's moving. But if I select an area that includes both of those dots, then by dragging one, I'm also dragging the other. So just imagine the vast amount of possibilities here. And I mean, we're not even looking at the modulation section and stuff yet. Absolutely bonkers. Okay, so here we have an overall level for the input. We have a level for the output, And it's also got this 0 latency mode if latency is an issue when you're playing live. Feedback, there are 2 types, and again, the tooltips will show you. This is just your standard feedback setting, conventional one. Basically here, you're just dialing in a certain percentage amount of feedback. But this one here will adjust the feedback dynamically depending on the delay time. And then here we have our high pass and low pass filters for the feedback. Here we've got cross feed, send the left channel to the right channel and vice versa. This will just immediately cut the feedback, very useful if it's getting out of control. This one will allow feedback values above 100%. And if you're using that, then this could be very convenient if things get out of control. Or you might also want to use a limiter after it as well. So let's experiment a little bit with the feedback. Okay, let's hear. Okay, so we've just immediately cut the feedback there. And of course, the other thing we could do is just narrow the bandwidth of the feedback. Beautiful. Dry and wet control, which you can also lock for when you're going through different presets, and for example, you only want, 50% wet, and you want to keep that even as you change presets. Using the XY pad. Okay, let's look at modulation. So first of all, here we can just quickly bypass all modulation. Now the amount of modulation applied is set over here, and that is different for each modulation source. So let's say, for example, I change this down to 0.29. This one has still stayed at 1, so that is not a global control for the modulation. Now here, let's look first of all at the sources. So we have a lot of different sources. We have LFOs, and it's easy to miss when you first look at the app that then when you choose something here, you may also have some options over on the right. So we've got various different LFO types over here, including a few slightly less common ones. And you can control the phase and the skew for the waveforms. Again, double tap as usual to reset. And you also have this type and division control here. And you can choose between synced and free. We have custom LFO option. So for custom LFO, again, you just click and then you can drag things around. And again, it can be stepped or free. And if we press this, it'll be quantized. You can see those little bars there in the background. So that's a fantastic thing to have. Then we've got this random one, again, with a couple of different choices here. We've got a macro one. So basically just play the modulation yourself with this big knob. This will give you a bit of control over, you know, where the knob is more precise, either at the bottom of its range or at the top. Just help you dial things in a bit better. And we have this smoothness control here as well, to just smooth things out a little bit so that it won't be so stepped. Probably notice that at a slower speed, I don't know. Anyway, that's the macro knob. Amp follower. Okay. Let me change preset. So we have 4 sources: input, output, sidechain A and sidechain B, but it does not seem that the iOS app has any sidechain possibility. This has been mentioned to the developers, so I don't know. I don't remember them responding to that. So I hope that they're going to put something in that you can actually sidechain it. At the moment, it really seems that you can't. Again, I'd love to show you this sample and hold function, but for me, every time I press it, the app crashes. So that's also something that needs to get looked at. Over here, we've got an amount knob that you can tweak the sample and hold amount with. Now, another important thing with the amp follower is the attack and release. So let's play, because I'm not doing anything without any input. So the red line basically represents the input. And you can see that that's, cleaving pretty close there. Or sorry, that's representing the output actually. Let's get it to the input. Okay, and now see how that will change as we adjust the attack and the release. Let's try that with the output. And we also have this over here. Automatically adjust the range by looking at the current values in the scope. And we can also change the range here. So again, this is the sort of thing that you just don't really see very much. So we've got an amp follower, a pitch follower. And then we have these other things, spectral brightness. Which presumably will just follow more higher frequencies, I guess. Again, this really needs to be explained in the documentation. Spectral centroid, not sure, maybe this just takes an average of the frequencies, really no idea. Spectral flatness, flux, maybe that's some measure of how extreme the steps between different frequencies are. Again, no idea. Zero crossing, no idea. Needs to be documented. Okay, so now let's look at something else about the modulation. So here, if I select the first modulation source, you'll see that there's a box around it. And then when I just hover over this, we can very quickly see what that particular source is modulating. So you can see that in this case, it is this x-axis of the XY pad. And if we press on it, then again, we can see here, and we can see that at the moment that has been set positive, and then here we're setting negative. Now, another thing I want to mention that could be improved is adjusting these, particularly the small ones. First you click and then drag. Now, this works perfectly with a mouse, but if I try and use my finger like I'm doing now, I get absolutely no proper accuracy whatsoever over the amounts that I'm dialing in. This has not been optimized for touchscreen, so the devs definitely have some work to do there. It really genuinely is not working well at all on those small knobs. On these big knobs, it's fine. That's me using my finger, and you can see I've got plenty of control. But on these small ones, absolutely not, unless there's some sort of knack to it. And another problem with the small ones is that, you really need to have your finger right on the thing itself, but then it becomes very hard to see what the actual value is. So this is something else that really needs to be optimized, no question about it. But overall, I think it's a very nicely done modulation system. There's only one thing I'd like to see changed here, and that is that at the moment, you can see we've got LFO1 set here. I kind of wish that I could just here immediately within this mode tap on the second source or the third source, and it would immediately jump to those, but it doesn't work like that. Maybe there's some, reason in terms of development. Maybe that's a non-trivial thing to do. I don't know. But at the way I need to do it at the moment, I need to sort of, jump out and press this again and depress it and then go back, select this, press, change around, deselect. It's just a few too many presses for my liking. Now, another thing here, we can make it unipolar or bipolar. And again, we got sample and hold here. We've got a reset here. And I think all those other things we have looked at. So that's it, everybody, for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Whether you're interested in winning or not, I would definitely appreciate a thumbs up if you found this video useful. If you're not subscribed, why on earth not? You know, this channel focuses on iOS music, but particularly towards the second half of this year, the number of desktop developers coming over to the iOS platform has just increased massively. So even if you're a desktop user, there's a fair chance that I certainly have already reviewed quite a few apps that are identical on desktop to their iOS versions, and my videos would be useful for desktop users. But particularly, it seems probably 2023 is going to be a real watermark year where I imagine a lot more desktop developers are going to be coming over. So hopefully my channel will become more relevant even than it is already to pure desktop-based musicians. But I also think that a lot of desktop-based musicians are going to start moving over to iPad, particularly with some influencers. People like Decap, for example, who just brought out Knock. That's been a bit controversial in terms of its pricing, as has this app. But as some of these well-known desktop-based YouTubers like Decap or like Heinbach, for example, Flus, apps like that are bringing a lot of people over to the iOS platform. Also things like Flip, for example, or Ableton Note, but the problem with those is that they don't have any connectivity, and a lot of people using those apps have just no idea that we have timeline-based DAWs on iOS, like Cubasis, for example, or we have very innovative and more modular host environments like what I'm using here, AUM, which is just a great little experimental playground. Not maybe quite as good for the average person to make a finished track as something more traditional like Cubasis is, but that a lot of people love, and that can really make you think outside the box a little bit. And of course, you can incorporate both of those. You can use AUM to get cool ideas together, record your stems, etc., import them then into another timeline-based DAW if you want to do that, and finish off your tracks in there, and so on. So anyway, I'm really glad to see desktop developers coming over, particularly ones like GS DSP, who are genuinely doing like radically innovative stuff. If you've watched this video through and heard the examples, you'll know that, yes, this is priced a bit higher than what most iOS FX apps would come in at, but it is also really, really different delay, and it's had a lot of thought and attention to detail put into it. Okay, everyone, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers. And happy Christmas once again.